Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is pre-match build-up show for the biggest game of our lives. That's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but right now it doesn't quite feel that way. This really does feel absolutely massive. I mean, we've been leading up to it for ages now. It feels like the entire season has already been leading to this moment. I am, of course, talking about Liverpool's Premier League match against Manchester City this Sunday at 4:30 p.m. at Anfield. And if you are anywhere else, if you are not watching this game, then I just don't know for you, because I am massively excited for this one. And I think as Liverpool fans, we're definitely the more excited party. You know, we've had the better start to the season. There's all sorts of stuff to do with injury records. We're faring a little bit better there. I'll come on to plenty more about that later on in the video. But also, we're 6 points clear at the top of the table. And so this isn't necessarily a free hit, but it certainly seems like Liverpool have got more room for manoeuvre here. And it doesn't feel like a must-win match in the same way that I'm sure it does for Manchester City. You know, a 9-point lead, especially when you consider the games that we've got coming up. You know, we will have played all of the top six, I think that is. Yeah, Chelsea, Spurs, Man United, Arsenal and Man City, we will have played them all, which means going into the December period, we almost definitely have the easier fixtures, whereas we are only the second Big Six team that Manchester City have played so far this season, and they also haven't played Leicester either, who are doing absolutely fantastic. So if we can open up a 9-point gap at this stage in the season, that would be absolutely massive, and I think it's so important that we get the results over Manchester City this time, because if you look back at last season and exclude our results against one another, Liverpool got 96 points, Manchester City got 94. So it was actually the results in these two fixtures that ended up deciding where the Premier League title went. So it's so important for Liverpool this time out that we take advantage. I don't think we took enough advantage of our home advantage in the fixture last time out. You know, the 0-0 draw, Man City nullified us, and at the time I think we were all reasonably content to take a point. It was at a point where we weren't quite sure just how much Liverpool were going to challenge Manchester City, so it felt like staying level on points with them at that stage of the season was an achievement in and of itself. But as we know now, we've got more than what it takes to take Manchester City on and take that Premier League title away from Manchester and to Merseyside and to Anfield. So I think it's important that we do get a result, especially in this one. Maybe at the Etihad, we can talk about taking a draw there. But on our own home turf, where we've got a massive advantage, where we can use the crowd to push our players forward and push their players back, you'd hope that Liverpool can not only knock Manchester City dead, but also come away with the 3 points that would open up, of course, that 9-point gap. And as for how we're actually going to do it, I think tactically we've got to try and peg them back. You know, we've got to push as much as possible. We've got to press, because that's what we did in the Charity Shield, and I felt like that match was so important in terms of illustrating just what the power dynamic, was going to be like between the two teams this season. Because last season it was very much about the two teams nullifying each other, about working out how to stop each other's attacking traits at the expense of their own attacking flair, and that led to games that weren't necessarily boring but were a lot more cagey than Liverpool Man City games were in the past. In the Charity Shield, especially in the second half, we absolutely ripped them to bits, and that wasn't a result of what we've used against City in the past, which is obviously the counter pressing, allowing them to play out from the back until we realise the moments where we can press, we can win the ball back, and we can catch them in difficult positions where all their defenders are out of position and create chances that way. It was very different to that. It was much more similar to, I'd say, maybe the way we played against Spurs in the latter stages of the first half so far this season, where it was just relentless attack, constant recycling of the ball. That's what we were doing against City at Wembley, and I think it's fair to say Liverpool deserved to win that game. Obviously, we only get the equaliser fairly late on, and we don't win the penalty shootout, but on the balance of play, we were absolutely fantastic, and that game gave me so much confidence going into this season that we were essentially the better team than Manchester City. Maybe not in terms of overall quality, but certainly when matched up against each other, it feels like Jurgen Klopp's got the edge at the moment, and I think we've got to take advantage of that this weekend. We've got to push them back. We cannot show them respect, and like I said, and I'll talk about it plenty more later on in the video, they've got injury problems of their own. They are up against the wall a little bit, and I know City fans have been trying to turn it into this David versus Goliath battle. It's not. Straight off the bat, no it isn't. These are two absolutely fantastic teams, but you feel like Liverpool have got an advantage and there's an edge to be taken here, and I think it's so important that we take full advantage of that we don't sit back, we don't show Manchester City any respect, we don't sort of, you know, try and avoid them getting counter-attacks or anything like that. Obviously, we may end up leaving ourselves open at the back. We did that a little bit against Spurs. Obviously, they could have gone 2-0 up with Son when he hits the crossbar, but you've got to take your chances sometimes, and I think Liverpool have got a massive chance here to assert our dominance in the Premier League title race. So as for team news going into the game, and there is plenty of it, Jordan Henderson and Virgil van Dijk have both missed training at various points this week. However, Jurgen Klopp confirmed in his press conference today that both of them will be available for this game. Jordan Henderson suffered through illness and missed out on the game against Genk. Virgil van Dijk had to go to some sort of dinner with some high-up Dutch people. It was something to do with the monarchy. They were putting on an event for influential figures in the Netherlands, and so he was invited to that because, you know, he's boss, and that's why he missed training on Thursday. It's nothing to do with fitness. He's absolutely fine. Jordan Henderson has recovered from the illness that kept him out earlier on in the week, so both of those will be available for this game. As for players that won't be available, Joel Matip is still sidelined. Xherdan Shaqiri is still sidelined. Nathaniel Klein is still sidelined, but broadly speaking, Liverpool have got pretty much a full strength squad at their disposal for this absolutely massive game. So as for how I think we're actually going to line up in goal, of course, Alisson Becker. There's no arguments there. As good as Adrian is, as wonderful as Kevin Kelleher is, there is no question here. You know, the best goalie in the world, significantly better than the lad they normally have between the sticks, Ederson. I do think Alisson is better than him, and he will be starting in net for Liverpool. Ahead of him, the centre-back pairing, obviously it's going to be Virgil van Dijk, barring any last-minute aberration with fitness or availability or anything like that. He's almost nailed on to start this one. Alongside him, I reckon we're going to go with Dejan Lovren. There's a little bit of a question at the moment as to who is going to partner Virgil van Dijk during Joel Matip's absence. I'm gutted Matip isn't available because it would be so fantastic to have a complete full-strength squad available for this match. But as it is, he is out with injury for another few weeks. So who replaces him? It's kind of 50-50 in a lot of fans' minds at the moment. Obviously, Dejan Lovren, he's got the experience, but he is slightly error-prone. Joe Gomez has been fantastic for Liverpool in the past, but it isn't quite happening for him this season. I do think, given how we've lined up in the Premier League, we've tended to go with Dejan Lovren for that extra experience, and he has played a few more games alongside Virgil van Dijk, I think, or at least been at the club alongside Van Dijk for longer than Joe Gomez has in terms of how long they've been playing in the first team and stuff like that. And also Joe Gomez has played in midweek, whereas Dejan Lovren has played all the weekend Premier League games. So I think we go back to Dejan Lovren. Jurgen Klopp trusted Dejan Lovren as well in the game at the Etihad last season at a crucial point, and you can argue your heads off about whether or not he was at fault for any of the goals, but at the end of the day, what is evident is the manager liked playing him in these types of games. So I think Dejan Lovren will start alongside Virgil van Dijk. I think we go with the first choice centre-backs as well. We've seen a little bit of rotation over the last few games, and I can 100% get behind that from Jurgen Klopp. You know, Andrew Robertson getting given a rest against Genk was fantastic in my eyes because we still got the job done, but Robertson has obviously been put through his paces ridiculously over the last few games. He has been run into the ground and has put in some fantastic showings, to be fair to him, and hopefully he is now raring to go again. So I think he starts at left back. Trent has to start at right back as well. If we're going to go for this attack mentality where we push City back and we lay siege to their goal, then those fullbacks are going to be absolutely crucial to it. Whether or not City work out a way to neutralise them, it's always important getting them into the game because, as it's been said over the last few days and weeks, Trent Alexander-Arnold is basically our Kevin De Bruyne. And when you look at the numbers they're posting, when you look at the average positioning as well, Trent doesn't position himself like a right back. That's just, you know, the arbitrary title his position is given based on vaguely where he spends his time. But as we know, the midfield fills in for those fullbacks all the time, and I think it's so important that those fullbacks are going to be bombing on and taking part in the game, because even if, you know, Trent, the spaces he normally operates in are being closed down by Manchester City, he's got so much skill that we've got to find ways around that. We've got to work out how to still get him in the game regardless of what they try and do and to stop him, and the same goes for Andrew Robertson on the other side. So that is the defence. Moving on to the midfield, I think Fabinho, of course, is going to start this game. I think it's so important that he does. We still haven't lost a league game when he has started. The only loss that happened in the league since he even arrived at the club was the game at the Etihad last season, where he was only on the bench for the start of the game. And I think it's fair to say when he came on, we did look like a slightly improved outfit, albeit we did eventually lose the game, of course. But I do think he's so important for us at the moment. That was made clear by the fact that he was forced to miss out the game against Aston Villa because Jurgen Klopp was so worried about not having him available for this match. Certainly the way we want to play as well, the speed with which City are able to turn the ball over, the clever passes they play, the clever positions their attackers take up. Fabinho is going to be crucial in terms of trying to cut out everything Manchester City try and throw at us, whether it's on the counter-attack or whether it's in possession and pushing us back. Fabinho will be central to making sure that we don't get ripped apart at Anfield on Sunday. So he definitely starts. And then alongside him, I think we do play it ever so slightly safe, and I think we go with we're not going with Oxlade-Chamberlain. That is the whole point of what I'm about to say. We don't go with Ox, we go with Jorginho Wijnaldum and Jordan Henderson as the two other midfielders. And the reason I've gone with that is essentially exactly what I was just explaining. The fullbacks are so crucial to our system. They bomb on, they don't play like, traditional fullbacks, and as a result, the midfielders got to do work to make up for that. We saw against Genk away what happens when we play Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain in midfield. As brilliant as they are going forward, Fabinho has to work overtime, and there's no way he'd be able to put in that kind of shift against this Manchester City side. He is going to need help, and I think we have to have the midfield to do that. And also, I spoke about the way we played against Spurs. We played this midfield against them, and I do think it was integral. I said it so many times, waxing lyrical about it in my post-match video after that game. The speed with which they recycle the ball when attacks break down, when, Trent and Robbo are further up the pitch and can't go back to retrieve it without taking time out of the game. The speed that the midfield recover it and get things going again is so important to that style of play, that relentless press, that relentless siege on the goal. And I think we're going to need them to do it again on Sunday. So I think they are so important to the system. Listen, I love Oxlade-Chamberlain. We know what he likes to do against Manchester City, and I think given their goalkeeping situation, which I'll come on to in a moment, I think having someone who can take long shots would be absolutely fantastic for this game. And I do think he'll play some sort of role off the bench during the match, but I just think from the start, for the sake of security and for the sake of getting the best out of our own team, we need to have a slightly more defensive, workman-like, although I know that's become almost a derogatory term, midfield to ensure some balance within the side. So I think it's Fabinho in the deep lying role, and then Jorginho Wijnaldum and Jordan Henderson ahead of him. And then the attack speaks for itself. It's Mohamed Salah, it's Roberto Firmino, it's Sadio Mane, the scourge of Manchester City, the scourge of Pep Guardiola's nightmares. We all know, thanks to that wonderful Amazon Prime documentary, just how terrified he is of these guys, and I do feel like they will bring their A game. It's been not iffy from the attack this season. They have, of course, been fantastic, and the numbers back that up, but we have yet to see a performance where all three of them have just united to tear apart a defence. And it's normally these games against Manchester City where all of them bring their A game and they suddenly just function as the most gorgeous, most destructive attacking machine you have ever seen in your life. So I think all three of them are going to start, and I think all three of them are going to be absolutely crucial to beating this Manchester City team. Speaking of Manchester City then, while things are reasonably rosy for Liverpool in the injury department at the moment, Manchester City do have a few problems hanging over Pep Guardiola's bald head going into this absolutely massive fixture. And of course, the huge one that only became apparent on Wednesday night is the fact that Ederson is probably going to miss the game. He picked up an injury, I think it was around about half-time in the game against Atalanta, and Claudio Bravo had to come on and take his place, and I think it's fair to say that he was not very convincing, obviously conceding a goal and then getting sent off late on in the game, forcing Kyle Walker into the role between the sticks for the last few minutes. Ederson, it seems, is almost definitely not going to play this game. It was a bit 50-50. Everything that was coming out after the game was that it was a minor injury, so we didn't really know just how long he was going to be out for. But Pep Guardiola has, it seems to have confirmed that Ederson will not be playing this weekend. And of course, there's been all this chat about mind games between the two managers and whether or not they're lying and whether or not Pep Guardiola makes up injury news to try and give Liverpool, a false advantage that he can then throw back in their face. It does seem to have happened plenty of times under his managerial tenure. The amount of times Kevin De Bruyne has been out for the season and has come back. And for example, Rodri, who I'm just about to come on to, picked up a hamstring injury just a couple of weeks ago. And there's already chat about whether he might actually be able to return for this game, despite Pep Guardiola previously ruling him out until after the international break. Of course, that break is just about to come up, so it's not a huge difference in terms of layoff, but there is a certain pattern emerging in terms of Manchester City players not being out for as long as possible. And to be honest, I think they're almost shooting themselves in the foot in terms of doing that, because there are plenty of times where players have come back too soon and picked up injuries as a result of that. John Stones certainly comes to mind as a player who is perennially either coming back from an injury or going straight back onto the treatment table again. The same thing does kind of seem to happen to Kevin De Bruyne. It's possible that they just have injury-prone players. We're very lucky at Liverpool that is a huge part of the recruitment process, that we're careful not to recruit players who aren't at the absolute peak physical condition, because we know of the demands of the way we play and the demands of the fixture list that are forced upon us as well, that we can't have players who are liable to getting injured on a regular basis. It's just not financially or, viable in a football sense either. And it doesn't seem like Manchester City have adopted a similar approach. They're very much about squad depth, about always having someone in reserve who can come in, but it does feel like that's finally coming back to bite them on the bum. They've had plenty of injury problems so far this season. Ederson's not going to be available for the weekend. Rodri is a doubt. I think of all the players who's supposedly out, he's definitely the one that looks most likely to potentially make a surprise appearance, especially given the troubles that Manchester City have at the back in terms of selection at the moment. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Pep Guardiola, given his track record of throwing in players slightly before they've completely recovered, if he just thinks, this game is too important this weekend, and he'd happily take Rodri being injured for another 2 weeks if it meant that he started at Anfield. So he might play. David Silva is almost definitely out as well. He picked up, I think, a hamstring strain in the game against Southampton last weekend, so he's almost definitely out for this game. In terms of how Manchester City are actually going to play and set themselves up tactically for this match, Pep Guardiola did speak in his press conference today where he was slightly prickly, I think it's fair to be said. Liverpool have definitely been rattling his cage over the last few weeks, and his comments about Sadio Mane the last week definitely prove that. But he was slightly prickly, and he did speak a little bit about tactics and about how he will probably set up a little bit more defensively than usual in this game. He spoke about how when he was back in Germany with Bayern Munich, whenever they came up against Jurgen Klopp's Borussia Dortmund, he would get the team to sit off a little bit more. He wouldn't go for the all-out attack every single player in the opposition half system that he usually goes for. We saw that at Anfield as well last season, and I think even to a lesser extent at the Etihad, he was much more concerned with stopping Liverpool play, because he's spoken himself about the effect Anfield has on you. He said how you concede one goal and suddenly it feels like they're going to score another 4 in the next 5 minutes. That has literally happened to him multiple times when he's come to Anfield as Manchester City manager. He is so aware of that happening, and I think he is so completely willing to sacrifice his tactics for the sake of avoiding that kind of thing occurring. We saw it at Anfield last season with the 0-0. I think he's going to set up in a similar way, and that is why I think we've got to just show not no respect, but we can't look at them as our equal in a way. We've got to say, this is Anfield. We're going to be the dominant team. We saw that in the Champions League with the 3-0 victory, where we looked Manchester City up and down, said, we beat you a few months ago. We can be better than you. We may not have the same level of ability yet. I think that you can definitely make arguments that we're on the same level now. But we know Liverpool know how to beat Manchester City. Klopp has been there time and time again. Of all the managers to come up against Guardiola, he has the best record of any of them in terms of the sheer amount of wins and good results he's come away with in the clash with the man many consider to be the best coach in the world at the moment. Klopp knows how to set us up. I have maximum faith with him in this game, and that is why I'm so excited. Also because this is massive, a chance to go 9 points clear at the top of the Premier League table going into such a crucial part of the season is absolutely huge. It's at Anfield as well, which obviously makes all the difference. We can use that atmosphere, we can push ourselves on, we can push Manchester City back as well. We've seen what happens to them under the Anfield lights. They can crumble given a good enough atmosphere. So, if you're going to the game, I wish I was, but if you're going to be at Anfield, just bring everything, treat it like a Champions League final, treat it like every European night wrapped into one. It will be under the lights, it's winter now, the sun will have set, the lights will be on that pitch. You've got to treat this like the biggest game of your lives, because who knows, when we look back on this match at the end of the season, it might just be the one that wins Liverpool the Premier League title. So prediction wise, I'm going for a win. And you know what? I'm going to go big again. I'm going to say it's going to be Liverpool 3, Manchester City 0. And I'll let you in on a little bit of a secret. The last time I said it was going to be Liverpool 3, Manchester City 0, it was Liverpool 3, Manchester City 0. And that was April 2018. So I'm doubling down on that prediction again. I think it's going to happen. Everything's in place for that to be the result this weekend. So I think Liverpool are going to win. Let me know what you think is going to happen down in the comments below. Apart from that, thank you guys very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter. And I'll be back on Sunday evening after we've hopefully spread that gap to 9 points at the top of the Premier League table. Until then, bye for now.